it is Miss Kepley here, and we are here for another First Chapter Friday. And this week, we are going to be looking at the great book, Schooled. I do not know if you have read anything by this author, Gordon Korman, but he's fabulous. I love his characters. A lot of times they are people that we can really relate to as middle schoolers. And I think his books are kind of like sweet and good and fun and easy to read, and it's books that you can really get lost in and find yourself finishing in a day or two. So let's go ahead and check out the back of this book, Schooled. You can notice there's a peace sign with a little school bus, and that has something to do with it, of course. But let's check out the back. It says, Capricorn Cap Anderson has never watched television. Can you imagine? He's never tasted pizza. He never even heard of a wedgie. Since he was little, his only experience has been living on a farm commune and being homeschooled by his hippie grandmother, Rain. But when Rain falls out of a tree while picking plums and has to stay in the hospital, Cap is forced to move in with a guidance counselor and her cranky teenage daughter and attend the local middle school. While Cap knows a lot about tie-dyeing and Zen Buddhism, no education could prepare him for the politics of public school. Right from the beginning, Cap's weirdness makes him a moving target at Claveridge Middle School, dubbed C Average by the students. He has long, ungroomed hair, wears hemp clothes, and practices Tai Chi out on the lawn. Once Zach Powers, big man on campus, spots Cap, he can't wait to introduce him to the age-old tradition at C Average. The biggest nerd is nominated for class president and wins. Will Cap turn out to be the greatest president in history of C Average, or the biggest punchline? Now, each chapter is told from a different character's perspective. It's first person, different perspectives, so you kind of see what's going on with every character and how they're feeling about what's happening. Can you imagine being a middle school student and never having pizza, never, watching a screen or anything like that, and then being put inside of a public school when the only person that you've ever known is your grandmother? That's what happens to Cap. And of course, sometimes students like to make fun of others that are different, and a little bit of that happens here, and we get to see how he deals with it and how the rest of the school deals with it. So it is a great lesson on friendship and treating others with respect, and it's very funny as well. So let's go ahead and check it out. We are on the Amazon site where I found Schooled by Gordon Korman, and the cover looks very familiar. And you might have seen some of these other books by him, The Unteachables, Restart. They are really good. He's such a good author, especially for middle school students. So let's go ahead and check out the first chapter. You see all those reviews, mostly positive, almost a 5-star review. I would give it 5 stars. I think it's great. Here we are, Chapter 1, Capricorn Anderson. I was 13 the first time I saw a police officer up close. He was arresting me for driving without a license. At the time, I didn't even know what a license was. I wasn't too clear on what being arrested meant either. But by then, we were loading Rain onto a stretcher to rush her in for x-rays, so I barely noticed the handcuffs the officer slapped on my wrist. Who's the owner of this pickup? It belongs to the community, I told him. He made a note on a ring-bound pad. What community? Golf club, condo deal? Garland Farm? He frowned. Never heard of that one. Rain would be pleased. That was the whole point of the community, to allow us to escape the money-hungry rat race of modern society. If people didn't know us, they couldn't find us, and we could live our lives in peace. It's an alternative farm commune, I explained. The officer goggled at me. Alternative? You mean like hippies? Well, Rain used to be one back in the 60s. There were 14 families at Garland then. Now it's just Rain and me. I tried to edge my way toward the nursing station. I have to make sure she's okay. He was unmoved. Who is this Rain? According to her social security card, the patient's name is Rachel Esther Rosenblatt. Her name is Rain, and she's my grandmother, I said stiffly. She fell out of a tree. He stared at his notes. What was a 67-year-old woman doing up a tree? Picking plums, I replied defensively. She slipped. So you drove her here? At 13. I drive all the time, I informed him. Rain taught me when I was 8. Sweat appeared on his upper lip. And you never thought of just dialing 911? I regarded him blankly. What's 911? The emergency number on the telephone? I told him the truth. I've never talked on the telephone. I told him the truth. I've talked on the telephone a couple of times in town, but we don't have one. He looked at me for what seemed like forever. What's your name, son? Cap. It's short for Capricorn. He unlocked my handcuffs. I was unarrested. So how could an able-bodied teenager allow his grandmother to scale a plum tree? Simple. She wasn't my grandmother at the time. She was my teacher. I was homeschooled. That was the law. Even on a tiny farm like ours, you had to get an education. No school bus could ever make it up the rutted, snaking dirt road that led to Garland. But transportation wasn't the only problem. If we had been serviced by an 8-lane highway, Rain still would have handled my schooling personally. We wanted to avoid the load standards and cultural poison of a world that has lost its way. So that's what I was doing when Rain fell, working on a vocabulary lesson. Most of the list came from the state 8th grade curriculum. Barometer, decagon, perpendicular. I could always spot the extra words Rain threw in. Nonviolence, Zen Buddhism, psychedelic, microprocessor. I frowned at the paper on the unpainted wooden table. Was that Rain or the state? I've never heard that term before. I stepped out of the house, careful not to disturb my science project, the Foucault pendulum, suspended from the porch roof. The tester from the education department thought it was good enough to enter in the county science fair. Too bad we didn't believe in competition. All the emphasis on trophies and medals, the shiny symbols of an empty soul. Anyway, Rain said the whole thing was a trick to make me go to regular school. If your project is excellent, it only proves you're getting a superior education right here with me, had been her reasoning. I spotted her up in the tree, reaching across the limb to pick a plum. Rain, I called, there's a word I don't And it happened. 1 minute she was on a branch, and the next she was on the ground. I don't even recall seeing her fall. Just a faint cry followed by a dull clunk. Ah! Whoop! Rain! She was laying on her side amid the scattered plums when I pounded into the scene. Her face was very pale, and she wasn't moving. My terror was total. Rain was everything to me. My teacher, my family, my whole universe. Garland was a community, but we were the community, the two of us. I knelt beside her. Rain, are you okay? Please be okay. Her eyes fluttered open and focused on me. She tried to smile, but the pain contorted her expression into a grimace. Cap, she began faintly. I leapt back to my feet. I'll get Doc Cafferty. Doc Cafferty lived a few miles away. He was technically a veterinarian, but he was used to working on humans since he had 6 kids. He had given me stitches once when I was 8. She reached up a tremulous hand and gripped my arm. We need a real doctor this time. A people doctor. I stared at her like she was speaking a foreign language. Doc Cafferty had filled all of Garland's medical needs as long as I could remember. She spelled it out. You're going to have to take me to the hospital. Rain always said that anger upsets the balance inside a person. So when you yell at somebody, you're attacking yourself more than whoever it is you're yelling at. Falling out of a tree must have made her forget this, because when the nurses finally let me in to see her, she was screaming at the doctor at top volume. I can't do 8 weeks of rehab. I can't do 8 days. You've got no choice, the doctor said matter-of-factly. You've broken a hip. It has to be pinned. After that, you'll need extensive physical therapy. It's a long process, and you can't ignore it just because it doesn't fit in with your plans. You're not listening, Rain shrilled. I'm the caregiver to my grandson. The only caregiver. What about his parents? The doctor asked. Where are they? She shook her head. Long dead, malaria. They were with the Peace Corps in Namibia. They gave their lives for what they believed in. Well, that sounds worse than it is. But I never knew my parents, except for from old pictures. They left when I was little. Besides, the rule at Garland back then was that we all belonged to each other, and it didn't matter who was related by blood. I have a few vague recollections of other people in the community when I was really young, but whether they were my parents or not, I can't tell. Anyway, it's impossible to miss what you've never had. I rushed to my grandmother's bedside. Are you okay? Is your leg all fixed up? She looked grave. We got a problem, Cap. And you know what we do with problems? We talk it out, we think it out, we work it out, I said readily. It had been the way since the very beginning of Garland in 1967, long before I was born. Now that there were only 2 of us, Rain still gave me a full vote. She never treated me like I was just a kid. The doctor was growing impatient. How about cousins or maybe a close friend from school? I'm homeschooled, I supplied. The doctor sighed. Miss Rosenblatt, that name hasn't applied for me for decades. You can call me Rain. All right, Rain. I'm admitting you now. We'll operate in the morning, and I'll call social services to see what arrangements can be made for your grandson. That was when I started to worry about what was going to happen to me. So there is the first chapter. I don't know if you caught it, but there was already some Rain-isms in there. The grandmother gives great advice. I love how she was talking about when you're angry and you yell at people, you're really angry with yourself. I mean, she has a lot of advice like that I love to keep up with when we are reading this with students. We keep up with it in the journal. We call it our Rain-isms, and a lot of it we can apply to our life. And I think you'll love this book. So go check it out at your library. It's Schooled by Gordon Korman, or I have linked the Amazon book that I was reading from below. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, happy reading, and I will see you next Friday. Bye!